Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening or this morning, depending on what time zone you're joining us from. I'm just going to give it a minute or so to allow some of your colleagues and future classmates and friends to join this virtual event. But thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn more about course registration. Attending this session is not only going to help you prepare for your first year at St. Thomas, but it is going to better position you for success and to feel empowered throughout the rest of your degree. So we're really excited to have you here this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to get started. We'll have some latecomers, but we will get everybody caught up as we go. Thank you again for taking time to join us. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of working with just yet, my name is Christy Flood Caristi. I work as the Director of Student Recruitment here at St. Thomas University. But I always say, more importantly, I'm a very proud STU alumna. I was in your shoes, which to me felt like not long ago. I'm sure to you folks, it feels like it was very long ago. But everybody who will be on this panel tonight is actually a STU alum. And we're so happy to be sharing our experiences and doing anything we can to support your experiences and ensure that it is as smooth and supported as possible. Before we get tonight's program underway, I would like to take time to acknowledge that the land on which St. Thomas University is located is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqey, Maliseet, whose ancestors, along with the Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy tribes and nations, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. So for those of you who haven't joined us for a virtual event in the past, I would like to just go through some housekeeping items, some ground rules, so you know what to expect. So the first thing that I'll mention is that your microphone is going to be muted and your camera will be off. So don't hesitate to get somewhere comfortable. There's no risk of you having your camera turned on or anything like that. But that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. In fact, we are very eager to hear from you and hopefully be able to answer all of your questions in real time. So you're leaving this session not only with general information, but also with answers to your specific questions about your particular situation. So the way we would like to hear from you is through our Q&A. So whether you're on your phone, a tablet, or a laptop, you'll be able to access a Q&A box in Zoom. There you're able to submit any and all questions you'd like to. If you're a little bit uncomfortable submitting the question that you would really like to have an answer to, you're welcome to submit it anonymously so your name isn't attached to it, but I will assure you that there are no silly questions. We know that this is a lot of information. It's a daunting process, particularly when you're still very much, for many of you, in the high school mindset. You're navigating different assignments and priorities that you have to really prioritize at this time in your life. And we're throwing a whole new system at you. So we know it's a lot of information, but we're here to help. Send us those questions and we'd be happy to answer as many as we can live orally. For those that we don't have time to tackle orally, we'll be doing our best to submit different typed responses to you as well. So you should get an answer one way or another. But we really do want to hear from you. So do not hesitate. Before I go any further and talk through the overview or agenda for this evening, I would like to introduce you to our wonderful panelists who have taken time out of their very busy schedules of helping current students register for classes to talk with you folks. So I'm going to throw it over to Kelly Hogg first. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, could I have you introduce yourself to our group?
Absolutely. So I am Kelly Hogg. I'm one of the academic advisors, along with Allison, who's going to introduce herself momentarily. We have both been working at St. Thomas for quite some time in a lot of different roles. So we feel pretty prepared to help you all with your questions and assist you with this course registration process.
And I am Allison Bellier, and Kelly is right. Been here forever. In fact, this is my 37th time doing registration at STU. Not only I was also a student here as well at one point in time. In any case, looking forward to helping you get comfortable with choosing courses and answering your questions and just all that kind of, yeah, really looking forward to your questions tonight.
It's for us, it's an exciting time. And I think course registration makes it real that you're coming to university in the fall and it really starts to hit home that this is happening. and starting to get excited for what you're going to be studying in the fall. So we're excited to be on that journey with you.
Exactly.
And you couldn't be in better hands than with Kelly and Allison. They know so much about this institution. Their institutional knowledge is endless. And that certainly extends to course registration and all of its intricacies. It is also something that is often changing. So a lot of what I've heard from students with whom I've been meeting this week is, oh, I had an older sibling go to STU 5 years ago, or I have some friends that I work with who are giving me advice. And it's really good to hear everything that they have to say. But I would, to some extent, take it with a grain of salt, because there are different changes that take place every year. And we want to empower you to take this into your own hands. You've been accepted to St. Thomas. We know that you have the ability to succeed here. And we want to get you excited about curating your own schedule that is really aligned with what interests you, what gets you excited. And you'll be interested to see throughout this process that some of what gets you excited and really piques your interest maybe a subject that you've never heard of until now. And that's kind of part of the joy of course registration. You're not only exploring things that you know you enjoy from previous experiences, whether that's high school, whether that's what you've been reading for pleasure or for your own edification, but you also get exposed to these different academic disciplines and ways of conceptualizing the world that may be brand new to you. And that gets us really excited, not only for you, but for the future, maybe for society more broadly. So before I get ahead of myself and go right into the thick of course registration, I did just want to outline what we'll be talking about tonight. So we'll be starting by discussing some of those course registration basics. For some of you, this may be review if you've attended open house sessions or different sessions that we've been having at some of the high schools throughout New Brunswick. But it's worth hearing again, because again, some of this information will apply not only to first year, but for further years in the future as well. Then we're going to talk through the actual process of registering in courses. How do you get those courses that you've thought through and curated onto the system? We're going to talk through some of the frequently asked questions, and this is something that Kelly was updating as recently as tonight based on some of the questions that we've been getting. So hopefully that will get the ball rolling and get you starting to think about some questions you may have specific to your situation. We're then going to turn it over to a live Q&A. So this is where we're going to be talking through all of those questions that you may have. And finally, we're going to talk through ways to keep in touch, just so you know this is not your only option for support. In fact, this is one of your first options for support. So we'll talk through what some of those further secondary options look like as well. And on that note, I am going to turn it over to our academic advisors to get us started by talking about those course registration basics.
Perfect. So I think I'm going to kick things off. One thing we do want to highlight, like Christy said, is there are always resources to refer back to. You don't have to remember everything that we say tonight. This is just an overview to give you a little bit of a background. But on stu.ca/register, all the resources that we're talking about are here, along with some additional supports. So be sure that you are referring back to that throughout your registration process. If you come across a roadblock, if you've got a question, if something just doesn't seem to be jiving, refer back to those materials. Number two, and Christy did mention this as well, you're going to register in courses that interest you. And that sounds like a common sense thing, like obviously I'm going to, but for each student, it's going to be different. No one's schedule is going to look the same as everybody else's. And it's part of my favorite things about our Bachelor of Arts program is it's so customizable to you and your interests and what you want to study. So that makes it fun and that makes it so unique to you. Some of the things you may not know what they are. The good thing about our registration websites do self-service. It gives you a chance to click on every single course, read a little bit more about it, see who's teaching it, what times. So if you're not sure what something is, click on it and find out more. You actually can stumble across some really interesting things that way, and sometimes take a path that you didn't initially think that you were going to by trying something new. The other thing I really want to highlight here too is your selections are not set in stone. So this is just the initial precursory selection of courses, registration, but registration is going to stay open right up until, I guess, September, like until courses start really for first semester. And you're going to be selecting both semesters at the same time, and you can make changes to your second semester right up through January. So yes, you're going to have a schedule set, but this is very flexible. You might find a friend that's in another class that you want to swap into. You might have an epiphany over the summer that you want to try something else. You have lots of flexibility to do that and to make changes throughout the summer before you come here in September. And we're gonna kind of delve right into some tips and tricks, some advisor knowledge here. So, some things that we want to make sure that you are accounting for in your courses is balance. And we mean this in a few different ways. So, you want to make sure that your courses are really evenly distributed. So, in some cases, there's going to be some multiple courses from each subject. We do not want you to take a whole bunch from each subject, even though it might be an option. So, history, for example, has a number of first year courses, and you might be really passionate about studying history and know that that's what you want to do. We do not want you to take more than 2 history courses in all of your course selection. So make sure that you're not registering for more than 6 credit hours in one subject. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what credit hours are in the next slide, I think, but no more than 2 courses from the same subject for your course selection. You also want to make sure that there's some balance in subject matter. So we have a lot of courses that are in the humanities, such as English and history and human rights, communications. And we have a lot of courses that are in the social sciences. Um, Psychology, anthropology, political science, for example. You want to make sure that you're bouncing between kind of all the aspects of the liberal arts. It is part of the point of liberal arts is to have that breadth of knowledge and to make sure that you're well rounded. And this is one of the ways that we ensure that area. And kind of the fun part about being able to make your schedule is you get to make your schedule and pick what times you want to be in class, what days you want to be in class. And that's a lot of freedom, but it's a little bit of power that we want to give you some tips of that. As much as it might be nice to not have classes on certain days of the week and maybe make yourself a long weekend, sometimes that's not always the best option moving forward in the long term. So make sure that you're balancing your courses on different days. So some of our classes will only meet twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Some will meet 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You want to make sure that you're balancing all the days of the week. And something that Alice and I feel very passionate about is this last point here is we want to make sure that you're registering in the proper level of class. So all of our courses have a code to them, and it'll start with a certain number. You want to register for courses that start with a 1. Those are introductory classes. Those are designed for first year students. The system may let you register for upper year courses that start with 2s and 3s, but we do not want you to do those. Those are designed for upper year students, and you will do better in those courses when you are a second and third year student. So make sure that you are only registering in introductory 1000 level courses. Okay, so we're gonna cruise right along here. So some of the basics, and I find one of the things that causes probably the most confusion with students registering is just the different terminologies that are used in registering for courses at the university level as opposed to high school, as we're using these new words, credit hours, semesters, course codes, and it does get be a little overwhelming, especially when we assume that you know what we're talking about and we're going into that. So just kind of coming back to some of the basics of our courses. So we're going to use the term credit hours a lot. It makes up your degree, it makes up your courses. What are those? A credit hour is simply what a course is worth, the value of a course. So when you complete a course, you earn credit hours. Most of our courses are worth 3 credit hours and are 1 semester long. We also have courses that are 6 credit hours that are full year. Ultimately, you're making enough credit hours to finish your degree, which is 120, which sounds like a lot, but when each of your courses are 3 or 6, it does add up pretty quickly. Typically, students will take about 30 credit hours a year. So that would be a 4-year degree if you're taking 30 credit hours for 4 years. So 10 courses in a year is roughly 30 credit hours and keeping you on track. What do course numbers mean? So if you're looking at our courses, you'll notice that there's a 4-digit code attached to all of them. So it'll show you the subject and then there's a 4-digit code. So Psych 1013, for example. So it's psychology, and then the numbers actually tell you some different things. So like I said, if it starts with a 1, 1013, it's an introductory 1000 level course meant for first year students. The other thing that's important in the numbering is the ending number. So 1013 tells you that it's a 3 credit hour course because it ends in a 3 and it's 1 semester long. If you get a course that ends in a 6, so sociology 1006, for example, it is sociology. It starts with a 1, it's a 1000 level introductory course. It ends in a 6, so it's a 6 credit hour course. So you earn 6 credit hours when it's done, and it's a full year course. So the numbers do tell you a little bit about how the course is offered. Sometimes there's a letter at the end of the courses, or actually, I think every time there's a letter at the end of the course numbers as well. A, B, C, D, what do those mean? They are just different sections of the same course. So if you are interested in criminology, for example, and you look at the crim course offerings and you see crim 1023A, crim 1023B, 1023C, which one do you pick? Which one should you pick? You just pick one of those and whichever one works best for your schedule. So pick one, and we just offer multiple options because they're popular courses and we want students to be able to have the flexibility to fit what works best in their schedule. When do semesters start and finish?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Because I
Right?
don't even know.
We are so focused on this year, we're not even thinking about next year. But it would start in September, go to December. I don't have the exact dates. Semester 2 starts in January and goes until April. And today actually is our last day of classes for current students. So it's been a very exciting day on campus.
And I'll just interject, just to mention that we will be bombarding you with important dates, payment information, all of those details that we know you may not have the bandwidth for right now. Once your academic year finishes up around the end of June, you're going to be hearing a lot from us with regards to those details. So if you need any of that information prior to book flights or anything like that, by all means, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and my team of admissions counselors. We'd be more than happy to provide you with that earlier. But we're just cognizant that you have a lot on the go right now, and we don't want it to get lost in the shuffle.
Um, so finishing up a couple other things on this slide. I'd mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what would be considered a normal course load? How many courses should you be picking? So a full course load would be choosing 5 courses in first term, 5 courses in second term, and that would give you that 30 credit hours in a year. There are multiple reasons where students don't take that full course load. You just need to make sure that you have, if you want to be a full-time student, you need to have at least 3 courses in your schedule each semester. So 3, 4, or 5 courses is considered full-time. If you take less than 5 courses, you may want to look at ways to make up credit hours if you're not maintaining that full course load, but it is something that's quite common. So we want to make sure that you're set up for success with the workload that you're taking. And how much time do you spend in each class per week? It works out to about 3 hours of course time each week. So sometimes, like I said, you meet twice a week and you meet for an hour and a half. Sometimes certain courses meet for 1 hour 3 times a week. There's even 3-hour night classes that you just have one shot and you meet once a week for that course. So you'll notice there's different course offerings and different options, and sometimes even for the same courses, we'll offer all of those varieties so that you can fit it in your schedule. But it's 3 hours of course time per week, but that doesn't mean that that is it. That is everything that you have to do for that course. The biggest change, I think, from high school to university is the amount of work that you're doing outside of the actual class time. I forget what the ratio is. Allison, do you know it right off by heart? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm
Is
happy to chime in.
yeah.
Yeah, Allison, after you.
I think it's 2 hours. It's either 2 hours or 3 hours for every class hour. I think it's 6 hours.
Usually, when we're talking with incoming students, we tell them to prepare for 2 hours outside of class for every hour spent in class.
Yeah.
And if you're realistic about actually allocating that time, you're going to have a really smooth semester. But what sometimes goes awry is that students will say, "Hey, I have all of this free time. I'm in class for half the time that I was in during high school." And that's when things can get a bit precarious because there is a lot that you need to do on your own. We've seen a lot of high school curricula in different jurisdictions across the world give students more time to work on assignments in class. That doesn't necessarily reflect what your reality will be like in a lot of your post-secondary university classes at St. Thomas. So you do want to be judicious about how you're scheduling things and not letting everything creep up on you at the end of the semester immediately before deadlines, because that's when things can get a little unnecessarily stressful.
All right. So I think we will keep moving along here and get to the exciting part, which is actually building your schedule. So you'll find different ways to look at the different courses. There is a full list on our stu.ca website alphabetically that just lists all of the courses. The way that we would actually recommend is actually logging into Stu Self Service and being able to see what the course offerings are, because you get to click on the course description, you get to see if the what the details are of the course, when it meets, if there's different sections, and it's actually a good way visually to build your schedule because you can put them in an actual timetable and see how your days are going to look. For those that are more visual like me, I like seeing what my whole week is going to look like, um, and it gives you a lot of options. So I think we're going to dive right into how to log into Stu Self Service next. Okay, so you're going to choose, if you're taking a full course load, 5 courses to take in each semester. If you are looking to take any courses that end in a 6, remember that those are full year courses. So you're going to account for it in both semesters. I don't think it'll show the option to choose it in second semester because the system automatically knows it's a full year course. And if you choose it for first term, it's going to put it on your second semester schedule automatically. So just account for that. If you're picking a course that ends in a 6, so Native Studies 1006, for example, English 1016 ends in a 6, it's a full year course.
Yeah, and it'll be in the same time slot right across the whole year. Same
Yes,
professor,
exactly.
same time slot.
Um, if you're a list person, write down all of the courses that you're thinking about taking so that you can kind of count up how many you've selected as your kind of priority courses, narrow it down to your 5 favorite. And if there's any subjects that you're coming into St. Thomas thinking I'm pretty sure this is what I might want to pursue or find out more about, those are going to be your priority courses that you lock in and then build your schedule around. It can be a little bit of a moving puzzle piece sometimes, is that you're going to want something and then you're going to put something else in your schedule and then something else, there's a time conflict. One of the really good things about our first year course offerings is that we offer multiple sections of the same course. So if something is not lining up, that you've got a conflict in 2 things you really want, oftentimes you can switch one of those to another time period to fill it in. And sometimes you can even switch it in another semester to fit things in and resolve some scheduling conflicts that way. For those of you that are more visual, we've got a kind of a sample schedule here. Um, the Stu self-service calendar looks very much like this, but you can see some of the different time slots that we typically see. So our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday courses, like we said, are usually an hour long. Tuesdays and Thursday classes are a little bit longer. And another common thing that we can see in this schedule too is sometimes courses are back to back, that um, there's one that ends right at 11:20, and then there's another course that starts at 11:30. And students might be hesitant to pick courses that are back to back because 10 minutes might not be enough time to get in between classes. We can assure you 10 minutes is plenty. If anybody has been here for a campus tour, you'll notice the campus is quite small. A lot of our classrooms are close together. Oftentimes, students will even have time to grab a coffee at the coffee shop and still make it to class in between that 10 minutes. So don't let that deter you in building your schedule. If you do have days that are a little bit heavier than some other days too, make sure that you schedule yourself a break. Grab some lunch, just get a mental break from your classes, so that you can be refreshed for the next block of classes as well. All right. So on that stu.ca/register website, there is a fantastic video that actually walks you through how to use Stu Self-Service, how to choose courses, how to search for courses, how to add, register, drop. I really recommend taking a look through that video. For those that have been able to log into Stu Self-Service, you might have already been playing around with it, which is fantastic. You can't break the system. You can go right in and play around with it. The system's not going to let you do stuff that you shouldn't be doing, especially before course registration is open. So please ensure that your logins are working and that you can get into Stu Self-Service and watch the video so that you are prepared when registration opens. You can, sorry, I'm going to take a drink of water. Been talking a while. The steps on this slide, it does show you how to log into Stu Self-Service for those that haven't been able or haven't had a chance to get in that. Your username and password are really the big key to this, which you will find in your Next Steps portal, in the portal that you use for admissions. It'll be your username and password. A lot of the students that I was talking with at the open house that were having problems logging in, it was because they were adding @stu.ca to their little 5-letter login. For Stu Self-Service, you do not use @stu.ca. It's just the 5 letters and your password. And then it'll give you the options to search our course catalog and take a look through the courses that we have. All right. I think Christy's going to hit us with some FAQs and put us
Yes.
on our toes. So
Yes, we are prepared for this. We've been training for this by talking with you folks and seeing what kinds of things that you're wondering about. And I can even see in the Q&A, there are some FAQs that we've been receiving that we didn't get to fit into this slide. So I think we're going to cover a lot of bases. The first question that we're getting a lot of lately is classes appear to be full. I'm trying to build my schedule on Stu Self-Service and the class is in red and it's saying that there are no seats available. What do I do?
Okay.
What do you think they should do?
Well, currently you may be seeing classes full because they're capped so that all of the courses that are on the schedule intended for your incoming class are on the schedule, but only a very limited number of students that are current students here right now are allowed to take those classes. We have some students that start in January, so they're still really first years. So it's like largely students like that that are taking up the few spots that are in there. Once your registration opens, the day it's opening for you, all of those courses will be open. Eventually, they won't. And you will come across courses that are full that you want. And so there are tricks and tips, especially if it's a second semester course. Just keep it there so you can watch it. And chances are between either now and September or now in January, people will drop that course. And so there are ways that you kind of just watch courses that are full, so that you can jump into a spot when people drop themselves out, which they do for all kinds of reasons. So that's that's the skinny around if classes appear to be full. Right now, there are no full first year classes. So if you're seeing that, that's why. And then they'll be open and then you guys will register and then there will be full things. And that's why I say, and then you can always ask somebody too what to do if you forget, because this is a lot of information coming at you. But if not, if you're on the ball tonight, better than I am, you can continue to watch that course. And as soon as you see there's a spot, as long as you're not already in 5 courses, you can just add that course to your selection. And you can do that right up until like the second week of classes, because you're actually able to go to classes first to see if you actually want to keep those classes. And that's when things really start to shift around. But we're going to talk to you so much before that happens. I don't want to, I don't want to go way too far off into the weeds on
I
full
I
class.
mean, I don't think it's in the weeds, Allison. I think you're
Yeah.
anticipating our next question, which is, can I
Okay.
change my mind after
Oh,
I
look at
make my
that.
initial selections and registration?
Huzzah. Yes, you can. You can change your mind so many times. You really can. You can drive your parents crazy. But you can change your mind. You can register for a full slate of classes um, on the 15th, and then you can completely change your mind the next week if you want. You probably won't do that, but you might. There could be experiences that you have over the summer and it makes you think, oh my God, I need to take an anthropology course. And you can do that. You can do that. So the courses are open until ab- about the second week of classes. I don't know exactly what the date is. I don't have next year's calendar up in front of me, but you will know all about it when the time comes. But yeah, you get to attend at least 2 or 3 classes before you have to commit, and before you can't change classes anymore. So you have long time.
It's also why we recommend not buying your textbooks early. That's always a question that we get.
Yeah,
Because you can change your courses into the first couple of weeks of classes, you want to make sure that you're going to stay in the course before you buy your textbooks. No professor is going to assume that you've got the first 2 chapters read on your very first day of class. Christy's shaking her head because she teaches in our gerontology department and is very used to students coming with those types of questions.
And I
yeah,
appreciate how proactive so many of you are, and you're keen and excited to embark on this journey, which is wonderful. But there's no rush in terms of those textbooks. Like Kelly said, nobody
yeah,
is expecting
yeah.
you to have them.
Yeah. How do I register for full year courses and how do I drop full year courses? To the best of my knowledge, as Kelly just mentioned, we've made a change this year, so you don't actually have to add each half of the course. You're just going to, if you've decided you're going to take sociology 1006 or religious studies 1006, you're just going to add that section that you're seeing in the first semester is going to automatically add the second semester. And I think we've done that to avoid problems where sometimes the courses come unhooked from each other and you're only registered in the first section. So I believe the same will follow. If you've added SOC 1006 and you've decided, no, I want to take a different course in this time slot, how do you drop that? Following the steps you're going to learn about in the video you're going to watch. You follow those steps, and I believe you're just going to you're going to drop what you see there, which I believe is the first semester of the course, and it's gone. If in the future you ever have any issues around registration, you will learn that the office that Kelly and I work in, we're not the registrar's office, but we work in the registrar's office. You'll come here for any registration issues. And it's a system, there's elves in the system. There's always little quirks that happen. So you'll know that you can just reach out to us and we fix things right away.
I'll just add something briefly to that, Allison.
Sure.
Just in meeting with some of you folks in the past couple of weeks, I've noticed that some of you are forgetting about those full year courses when you're building your second semester schedules because they're not automatically populating yet. They will once course registration opens on April 15th. But for now, you need to kind of envision that they are there in your schedule for second semester, just so you can plan accordingly and aren't trying to register in, say, 7 classes for second semester, 5 semester long courses plus 2 full year courses that perhaps you forgot about. So our next question is with regards to the Aquinas program. So the question is, how is AQGBEN 1006 different than ENGL 1016? So for context, if you're looking through those courses on stu.ca/register, they both appear as introduction to literature. So that can cause some confusion for students. I'm wondering if Kelly or Allison have any insight that they can share.
Yeah, Aquinas is a program. So AQ is Aquinas, Great Books program. And so the way that this program works is there are 3 courses intertwined. I don't know what they are this year, if it's English, political science, and philosophy.
It
If
is.
it sometimes, okay, very good, excellent. It can be a different combination of things. So what you're getting when you take the Aquinas program is you're automatically enrolled into like 18 credit hours, the full year of English, political science, and philosophy. But it's taught all as one program. And generally, the Aquinas program is meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what they ask is if you are registering yourself for the Aquinas program, that you don't register in anything else on those days, and you have the rest of your classes either on Monday, Wednesday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So how is English 1006 different than English 1016? I mean, it isn't really. It's got a different number because it's part of the Aquinas program, but it still functions as the first year English course for anything going forward. So it is the equivalent to English 1016. It's just got a different number because it's part of the Aquinas program. Um, so if you decided after, in your second year, toward the end of your second year, you want to major in English, or you decide as you're going into second year, you want to take upper level English, you've got the equivalent to the same English 1006 from Aquinas is the same as English 1016 that somebody just took on their own without the addition of the other courses. The Aquinas program can be really fulfilling if you like learning in that kind of environment and having things more interactive and intertwined, interdisciplinary.
Thanks so much, Allison. A question we've been getting a lot of from students across the globe is, what level of French should I be taking?
Sure, I can take that one. Um, so, being in New Brunswick, in a bilingual province, we do have students coming with a wide range of backgrounds in French. So, our French department actually works really closely with the students to make sure that they are registering in the appropriate level of French. We have two French introductory courses. There's 1016 and 1026. Start with a 1 and in a 6. So, you guys are going to be pros at this. So, it's a first year course and both are full year. One, I'm forgetting the proficiency level, is basic plus, I think, for 1016, and 1026 is for those that got intermediate plus on their proficiency exams for New Brunswick. Um, and they are held at the same time. So if you get into one course and you're finding that it is not the right level for you, maybe you should be in the higher, or vice versa. You're over your head and you're thinking you should have been in the other one. It's a matter of working with the faculty members, and we'll make sure that you're swapped to the appropriate level. We don't have any basic introductory French being offered this current year for students that don't have any background in French. But if that is something that you're looking to do, Allison and I can talk to you about some potential options for getting that set up as well. We also have some students that are coming from a French high school or are fully bilingual. No, you do not have to take the introductory French courses. In those cases, we can look at what appropriate upper year French courses might be for you in that circumstance. So that might be the one exception that we will let you not take a first year course, is if you are bilingual and looking to take French.
Yeah. Generally, if you're bilingual, we'll put you into the second year because it is a French lit program. So that's generally, but you can have a meeting with the department too. And
That is something I think I just want to highlight in general, is that our faculty members are really happy to talk with students and um, to help address issues like this. If you've got questions about your specific courses when you get in them, if you've got concerns, our faculty members are really great to work with and are another resource aside from Allison and myself as you work through your degrees. Random plug for faculty.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Our final question on here is, what happens if I've taken AP or IB courses? And I'll start with this answer, and if anybody wants to add, feel free. But we have a number of students from New Brunswick, across the country and across the world, who are taking more AP and IB courses. So we're happy to consider those for transfer credit. There's a couple of things that I'll mention. So if you're taking AP courses, you need to ensure that you're writing the official college College Board exam associated with that AP course. So if you're just taking the AP course, but you're not writing that AP exam, it automatically wouldn't qualify for transfer credit. It's that College Board exam that signifies you have successfully completed the course at the university level. Now, once you've taken the exam, we're looking for a score of a 4 or 5 for an AP. And then what we need is to ensure the College Board is sending us that score directly. So when you're writing those exams, usually in May, you're able to indicate that you'd like to have the score sent directly to your post-secondary institution. So you can just put St. Thomas University, and they'll be able to send that to us. Oftentimes, we don't get those scores until July. It can take a little while for it to get from them to us. So if that's the case, if you know that you have a particular score that would qualify you for transfer credit, and it may have some implications for course registration, please do reach out to us because we can see if there's anything that we can do in the intervening time just to ensure that you're positioned for success. And before I get kind of further down that road, I'll just mention for those who have taken IB courses separately, so if you're taking some one-off IB courses at the higher level, we're happy to consider anything that has a score of 5, 6, or 7. Again, we need those official scores to be sent to us. Of course, if you've taken the entire IB diploma, then we're happy to consider that for transfer credit up to a maximum of 30 credit hours as well. So just ensure you're sending that to us and that you're communicating with us. We will automatically be in touch with any students for whom we receive those scores in the summer to say, hey, you qualify for example, a transfer credit for Intro to English. We notice that you're already registered in that English 1016 course. Would you like to change that enrollment so you then can qualify for that transfer credit? So sometimes it's a matter of having those discussions to weigh pros and cons. When I'm thinking through English, just to stay on that example, we often have students who qualify for that transfer credit, but they want to do the Aquinas program, which would be essentially a redundant English credit. So we're able to have those conversations with you. Oftentimes it's Allison that's navigating those questions and conversations to help advise you in the most informed and thoughtful way possible.
Christy, did we talk about fine arts? Because I think we might have skipped over a question.
We
Oh.
did not talk about fine arts, and fine arts is something that is complex to a lot of students who don't
Yeah.
have that institutional knowledge. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The question is, I'm interested in fine arts and musical theater, but I don't know how, or I don't understand rather, how Fine Arts 1733 and Fine Arts 1743 work. Allison, do you want to start us off on that
I will
one?
try because it doesn't only confuse you, it also confuses some of us as well.
I can pitch in as well there too.
Yeah. So the way it works is you're registered in both courses in both semesters,
So
right?
actually, they've changed it this year.
Okay, you talk.
Sure. And fine arts, honestly, if there's usually exceptions to our course registration rules, you will find them in fine arts. So musical theater in particular, this course, it's Intro to Musical Theater, and I don't know the title. I don't have it in front of me. It has escaped my brain completely.
It may be music literacy for acting, singing, and dancing. or
Yes,
something
that's
That
to
is
what it is.
exactly what it
That's
is.
what it is. Yeah.
So those courses are tied together that you can't take one without the other. You need to take them both. One is in first term and one is in second term. So essentially, they're going to work exactly like a full year course.
Okay.
1743 will be the one that you see in first term, and then the second term one will be 1733. So it's going to function exactly like a full year course, except you get 3 at the end of one semester and 3 at the end of the second. It is a different course than our actual musical theater course, which is typically a course that is audition based. Well, it's not typically, it is an audition based course. It's typically for our current students, so second, third, fourth year. So some different options for fine arts. Fine arts is also the only department where you will find 1 credit hour courses. So we've been talking about how courses end in a 3 or a 6. There is a rare occasion where you will find a course that ends in a 1. It means it's only worth 1 credit hour. So if you do sign up for any of those courses, just make sure that you're not going to be short credit hours because they're not worth the full value of a normal course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly.
No problem.
Our Q&A is hopping. There are
Awesome.
lots of good questions, some of which are similar to things that we've shared, but we're happy to just reiterate some of these points so everybody's feeling confident. The first questions I'm going to pose to our panelists just have to do with are there any required courses that students need to be taking either in their first year or throughout their degree? I don't know if anyone wants to start that one off.
Yes and no. So there's nothing specific. There's no one specific course that you have to have. So in your degree, you don't have to have an English course. You don't have to have a math course. We do have categories that you need to cover at some point in your degree. So it doesn't have to be done in your first year. What's more important for your first year is that you highlight your interests. Naturally, students will cover these categories honestly without too much effort, and it's not really until their third and fourth year that they do have to fill in some gaps that they might not have hit. But ultimately, in your degree, you need to take 12 credit hours from humanities subjects. That's only 4 courses, really, and those humanities ones. So English is in there. There's also communications, history, philosophy, religious studies. I could name a whole bunch. There's about 10 different subjects that fall under humanities, so there's lots of choice. You also need to have 12 credit hours from social sciences. So that is really any of the ologies: criminology, psychology, anthropology, political science is in there, native studies is in there. So anything from the social sciences, and you just need 12 credit hours or 4 courses. You also need to have 6 credit hours from, we have another group that involves your math, sciences, environment, society, or fine arts, and you just need 6 credit hours from that group. And I do want to highlight, you do not need to do these in your first year. They're meant to be done over the course of your degree. So do
And you
not,
also don't necessarily
yes,
have to take science and math, so don't freak out.
yes.
Oh, thank you both so much. A couple of questions students have just in terms of where to find these courses. So as Kelly mentioned, there's a couple of different places that you can see them. So if you go to stu.ca/register, that's going to be the hub for everything. It's going to have the different links to take you to where you want to go. It has a list of the courses and the different times at which they're offered. There's a list of course descriptions so you can better understand what some of those course titles actually entail. But you'll also be able to access Stu self-service from that link. And that's always a good way to start looking at not only the courses, not only the descriptions, but also how they fit in with one another. So you can do some scheduling Tetris as you learn about the different options available to you. So if you're not sure of what you want to take, you're not sure where to look, stu.ca/register is where we would encourage you to start. The other thing that I'll just mention is that there are a lot of resources that are being emailed to you right now. So we really encourage you to pay attention to the emails that you're being sent. We try to be very thoughtful about what we're sending you, why we're sending it to you, and when we're sending it to you. So rest assured, if we are sending you something, it is important, and it'd be to your advantage to look through it and ensure that you're having some understanding of what's contained in it. In all of those emails, there's different resources if you don't understand, if you need help, if you want a follow-up conversation to better unpack any of the information that's on there. But you will find many of these links have been sent to you as well. On that note, I'm just seeing a few general questions I'll get out of the way about people who aren't sure of where to find their usernames and passwords. So as Kelly mentioned before, if you log into your applicant portal, so it's where you would have received your offer of admission, where you would have applied for scholarships or bursaries, where you would have received the link to submit your residence reservation at stu.ca/apply, you're able to go on to the Next Steps tab. And if you scroll to the bottom of that page, you'll see your username and password for Stu. So that's going to be your ticket into all of the most important platforms that you'll need, not only as you're coming into Stu, but throughout the duration of your 4 years here. As Kelly mentioned, when you're logging into Stu Self-Service, which is that platform through which you'll register, You don't need @stu.ca as part of your username. And in fact, if you include that, it will not work. So if on Stu's accepted next steps tab, it says your username is hfknp@stu.ca. When you're typing in your username for self-service, you just put hfknp, for example. If you're having any issues with your credentials, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Sometimes we can navigate that without having to get IT involved. Sometimes we will need to bring them into it, but in any case, don't hesitate to start with me and I'd be happy to help. Couple of other questions that I have. So Allison, I have somebody who's joined us as a transfer student. They were recently admitted and they're going into their 3rd year of study. They're unable to register for some 2000 and 3000 level courses because they require a particular prerequisite. They're just wondering how they can get some support and how this problem can be solved because they're really hoping to get into classes before they fill to capacity.
You should take down my email address right now, transfer student, because I just can't get to you. It's really busy here with current student registration, one of the busiest years I've ever experienced. And I am trying to get to all the transfer students. So chances are it's me that did your transfer credits. So at least I have that in my head somewhere. But you just need to get to me. So if you can take down my email, BELYEA@stu.ca, and email me directly, I will get right back to you and I'll arrange a time probably for next week. And we will get together and on over the phone, and I can help you do all of that.
Thank you so much, Allison.
Yeah, and if anybody else is out there wondering the same thing, that's why. I just can't, it's not that you're not important to me, because you are. It's really hard when people are in front of me to get to somebody that's not here.
That's just it. And if you're in need of service, like we are here to support you. It's a very busy time as our current students are finishing things up and registering for courses. So we do appreciate your patience and hope you know how much we value you and are really excited to have you join the STU community. Kelly, I have a question for you. I have somebody who's asking if they can take Psych 1 and 2 in different semesters. And I know this is a question that could be generalized for some other introductory level courses as well.
And that's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked that. So one of the confusing things about course registration is, how do I get my intro courses for the subjects I want to take? Psychology is one of our common ones, so I'm really glad to use that as an example. So in some cases, our intro course has 2 parts. There's a 1013 and a 1023. Psychology is one of those. Criminology works similarly, gerontology, anthropology, for example, a 1013 and a 1023. You do need both of those courses if you want to move on to those next year. So in your 2nd year, you will need both of those courses. For psychology and criminology, I know off the top of my head, they're very popular and you can take them in either semester. Doesn't matter which one you take first. So you could take 1023 in first term and 1013 in second term. There's a couple that you do need to take them in order, and the system will let you know which one you need to take first. But if you see 1013 and 1023 in the same semester, just pick one and take the other one in the next semester. Psychology, it doesn't matter which one you take first. But we do recommend spreading them out over the 2 semesters just to give yourself that balance and make sure that stuff's not overlapping too much, that you're able to keep things straight when you're studying for your courses and prepping for your work.
It's really good advice, and because we've been here so long, you should listen to us because you don't want to be the person in November that's like, I wish I listened to you, because it happens and they come, because we don't really judge. We just, we'll cry together kind of thing. But it is good to listen to what Kelly's saying.
Yeah. There's also another way to get our intro courses is through the full year courses. So courses like sociology, English has a full year option, religious studies is full year. That would be the way that you get your intro course for that subject. The other way that some subjects offer their intro courses is they offer a whole bunch of different options. There's like 5 different options in first term, 5 in second term. All you need to do is pick 2 of those total. History offers them like that. Philosophy, political science offers multiple options. Fine arts offers multiple options. You want to make sure you're never taking more than 2 intro courses from one subject. So if you're taking one of the ones that split 1013 and 1023, those are your 2 intro courses. If you're taking history, a 1000 level history in first term and a 1000 level history in second term, where you get to choose which ones you want, those are your 2 intro to history covered to move on into history in the future. If you're taking a full year sociology course, that's considered your 2 because it's worth 6 credit hours. That's your intro to move on to that. I'd say one exception would be human rights. They just offer the 1 semester long intro, and that's sufficient for you to move on in your second year into those subjects. So our intro courses are offered slightly different ways depending on the subject, but as long as you don't take more than 6 credit hours from the same subject, then you'll be all set with that balance that we're looking for, able to move on into multiple subjects in your second year. And this wasn't a question that was asked, but it always comes up is there's a lot of intro courses that I want to take, and I wasn't able to fit them all in my schedule this year. Am I going to be able to try some of these courses down the road? Is yes, you can continue to take 1000 level courses later in your degree. There's just a limit in how many you can take, so you don't want to take too many. But don't worry if there's something that just didn't fit this year. It doesn't mean that you won't get to take it in the future.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. Excuse me. And I was going to say it's a good idea to have a mix of both 3 credit hour and 6 credit hour courses in your first year, at least one 6 credit hour course. It's nice to have the same professor all year. It's nice for if you need a reference, things like that. Like there's really good reasons. It's nice to have a mix of a course that you don't have to, if you didn't do so hot in the first semester, you still with the same professor, you have a chance to do better in the second semester. There are good reasons to have a mix of both of those things. And one other thing I want to make sure I say, and I don't know if anybody's going to ask this question, is I doubt it, where Kelly was talking about how now you have the power, blah, you can do whatever you want. You can never have to take another 830 class in your life. And you don't have to take an 830 class, but I recommend trying to stick as close to what you're used to in your first year, especially in your first semester. You will do better if you take classes in the morning, like earlier in the day. Don't, sign up for all night classes and once a week. The more contact hours for first year students, from what I've observed, having 2 classes a week or 3 classes a week is better for you in first year. I know sometimes things are full, and so sometimes in first year you might have to take a night course. That's okay if that happens, but generally it's better to have them earlier in the day. Like I said, that is what you've been used to for the last 12 years. It's nice to have some freedom to not maybe have to be in class at 8:30, but I highly recommend being there by 10. And trying to keep things earlier in the day. It's a healthier, better way to approach your first year of university and listen to us and make good choices.
Good advice in general.
Yeah.
I've got some questions actually you folks answered, so that was perfect. You read the tea leaves there. A couple of questions that we're getting are related to options to take courses at UNB. And then relatedly, we have somebody asking if there are any physics courses that they're able to take in their first year.
Really
Uh,
good questions.
yes.
I don't know, do you want to take it? Do you want me to take it?
You go ahead.
Okay, cool. One of the benefits of being in close proximity to UNB is we do have a partnership with them that students, if you're full-time, you can tap into UNB course options, which is helpful for courses that we don't necessarily have, especially in the sciences. So we will have students that will take some biology or chemistry or physics courses from UNB where we don't have those. Math as well, we don't offer a lot of math courses. So for students that want to explore those subjects a little further, but you're not seeing those in our course options, students can take courses at UNB, and we would work with you on what that looks like. There's a maximum of 2 per semester, and we would want to talk with you about what you'd be looking to take and what would transfer back. So not everything from UNB is something that would transfer back from Bachelor of Arts. So we would want to make sure that you're taking appropriate classes for the Bachelor of Arts. But yes, in the cases of sciences, um, they do have an introductory French course for students that don't have the French background, so that is an option. And yeah, blanking on where I was going to go with that, but I hope I answered that okay.
And that registration is done through the registrar's office. It's actually done a
Yes.
little bit differently. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm sure you can reach out and get directed to the right location so that we can try and get you registered for those courses.
Thank you both so much. We have a few students asking if there are online courses, and some are wondering how online courses work. I'm wondering if either of you would like to speak to that.
We have a handful of online courses. I think there's maybe 5 in each semester. Um, they are they are designed to be online courses for that particular semester. I believe they are asynchronous, which means that you don't have to be sitting in front of your computer logged in during that particular course time. Um, you will be responsible for making sure that you have the work done in that day, but you have a little bit of flexibility on what you do in that day, the time frame that you're doing that work. Each professor does structure their course slightly different. So not all online courses are going to be structured the same, but we have a platform called Moodle, which is actually used for in-person classes as well, that a lot of professors will put their slides or their content that you need to access for that course is going to be on a platform called Moodle. So yes, a handful of courses. You will see them scattered in Stu Self-Service when you're searching for the different courses in the subjects. There is no way to search for only online courses, so you'll just kind of catch them. I think location and time will say web online, TBD for the actual timing of the course, and it's because it's online, it'll say web online.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kelly. Sorry, I'm just trying to type some responses to our very happening Q&A box. So we have somebody who's wondering about the difficulty of first-year courses. Are they challenging? How do they compare to high school courses? And then I have another student who's wondering if there are certain subjects that are more challenging than others.
That really depends on the person, honestly. What one person's challenge is another person's delight. So, I mean, that's why it's nice when you first get here. You get a long time to decide on the courses you're going to register, but then you get time to think about it over the summer. Then you've got time to go to the class, get the syllabus, which is an outline of everything that class is going to be about. Sometimes it's very, very detailed as down to what each assignment is, the due dates for everything. So once you've attended your 5 classes for the first time and you've got these 5 syllabi, like one of the first things, which we will talk about in September when we're greeting you, is what you do with all of that to see if you've got a manageable course load. Now I'm forgetting where I started with this, but sorry, I lost my train.
That's okay.
I
I
lost
can
my
jump
train.
in
Yeah,
too
go
as
ahead.
well while you're getting your train of thought back on. Different subjects too. Some are just tend to be a little bit more essay or reading based. Some tend to be more test based where there's multiple choice. Really
Yeah,
depends on
exactly.
the subject. And I think you'll get to connect with how different subjects kind of offer their particular options. Like I myself, I studied a lot of history while I was here at St. Thomas, and history by its nature is a lot of reading and essays and writing. Whereas something like psychology, less of the actual reading of textbooks, or still reading of textbooks, sorry, but less essay based and more test based in that type of subject. So it really depends, and it can vary within the subject as well, depending on how different faculty members structure their courses.
That's one of the things you will figure out. It's part of the thing that you will
Mhm.
figure out, especially in the first semester.
Yeah.
But we do have, methods to help you sort of decide if something might be too challenging in consideration of the other courses that you have and why it might be better. I mean, some of what we're talking about, where we're telling you to only take 2 courses and take them in the opposite semesters, is because of that. It's too challenging to try to do 2 intros to psych that are about 2 different things at the same time. Like it's better to do one and then you've got that and then you build on that with the next course, instead of trying to do, everything at once. Like you can make things too challenging for yourself that way. But in terms of there are some subjects or courses that are more challenging than others, it really just depends on who you are.
Yeah, some subjects will have a lot of group work. Some subjects will have experiential learning components. It's really neat, and I think that's part of the beauty of Bachelor of Arts, again, is being able to have that customization and build something that works for you, because what works for you may not work for somebody else, and what you find easy might be different than your best friend. So it's really unique.
Yeah, we often will have students who are in the exact same course, and their experiences in that course are very divergent. Like you wouldn't know they're describing the same class.
It is true.
Right? So it really does have to do with you and what your aptitudes are and where you're willing to grow as well. I'll just tie in a couple of related questions really quickly. There are some folks who are wondering, like, if they are able to do all of their assignments in class. As I mentioned before, that's quite rare. That's not to say there aren't times in classes for in-class assignments, to workshop different assignments that are taking place, but we do find, compared to a lot of the high school curricula, not just in New Brunswick or Canada, but across the globe, you will have much less time to work on your assignments in class than perhaps you were used to at the high school level. So this is where you have that opportunity to grow and really work on your time management skills, your planning, and there are different resources and supports to help you with that as well. Relatedly, I have a person who's tuned in and is asking how they'll have time to work at a job if they need to save X amount of hours to work on schoolwork after class. And rest assured, we have students who do it with all different levels of background and preparation. So we have no doubt that you'll be able to get there, but I'm heartened to see like you're already thinking through that, because we do find sometimes students will start post-secondary and be planning to work like 40 hours a week in addition to having a full-time course load. That isn't something we would recommend. That doesn't mean it's not possible for some people, but it certainly isn't the norm, and wouldn't necessarily be conducive to your academic success, and your health as well. So it's always a bit of a balancing act, and as you get the hang of it, you'll better understand what you can take on and what kinds of courses require what kinds of time for you outside of class as well. Couple of other questions we have, rather. So I have a lot of folks who are really getting in the weeds about French proficiency. I can see this may be a source of concern or panic for this incoming cohort. It sounds like a lot of you are looking for more information or advice than we've already given you. So if you think that your situation may not fall into those general guidelines that Kelly was giving before, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we can give you that individualized counsel and ensure that you're feeling comfy about which French course you're enrolling in. But I will repeat what Kelly said, which is that there is that period of adjustment where if you're in a French class that doesn't suit your proficiency, our faculty will talk with you and help you readjust and recalibrate. So it isn't as though if you don't get this perfectly right for fall that it's do or die. Like there is still all of that time to better assess your proficiency and how it fits within the course.
Yeah, and the two courses are held at the exact same time, so it's not going to hijack your schedule if you have to swap.
And if you're somebody who is bilingual and you're going into second year French, you don't need to worry about anything. Like you'll be fine.
Thank you both so much. We have somebody asking, if we don't register for courses we would like to take at exactly 12 p.m., would the classes already be full? Any thoughts?
They could be. So I would not leave it to chance. I mean, they could be even if you're there at 12. I mean, I don't know. It depends. There are some courses that are very popular. This year, there are a lot of sections of Intro to Crim, 1013 and 1023. What people will do, so here's a trick. What people will do is everybody will try to register for 1013 first in the first semester and 1023 in the second semester. So if you're concerned that you're not going to hit that button first, you could do 1023 in the first semester and 1013 in the second semester. And it's not likely that those will fill up as fast as they will the other way around. This is just something that I've observed because that's generally what people will take the lower number first and the higher, but you can do it the opposite away and it doesn't make any difference. You need to have them both to move on into second year. So things like that. But I definitely would register on the first day, especially for some of those subjects that are very popular, criminology, psychology. Now gerontology is becoming very popular, communications, things like that.
Course registration is on a first come, first serve basis. So you don't want to delay, especially if you got some priority courses. But like we said, course registration does say open right until September. We do have students that are admitted later to the university that have no problem getting a full course schedule. So it's not the be all end all, but earlier is always better.
If you can register, register. And then if you want to make changes, you've got all that time to make changes. Way easier to make changes than it is to try and register in everything later on. Like you'll have better availability if you do it on the 15th. But yeah, no one's going to come after you if you don't.
And we will be sending you reminders like about a half hour or 15 minutes before it opens, just because we know students are busy and we're not trying to harass you, but we just want you to remember like, oh, that actual time when you can hit register now is going to be taking place imminently, so you can get all settled. We try to have it at a time that we know a lot of students may be in a lunch period, but as Allison said, there are some that may fill up, and the fun of it is that there are some we can anticipate, but there's also some that vary from year to year based on each cohort. So it's always exciting for us to see like, oh, this year students are really into magic and demons. And that's one that we had one year fill up within the first hour, no question. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always interesting for us. On a related note, we have somebody who's asking like if they've pre-built their schedule this week on April 15th, do they have to re-add everything? And I'll just answer that really quickly with a no. All of your hard work is not going to be for nothing. So on April 15th at 12 noon Atlantic, basically what will happen is when you're on that register for courses page on self-service, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner that currently will be gray because you can't click it. At 12 noon on the 15th, it will become green and thus active. So then you can hit register for courses. And you'll want to ensure that you're doing that not only for semester 1, but for semester 2 as well.
And one of the great things about Stu Self-Service is everything's color coded. So right now, while your schedule isn't finalized, I think it's like a beigey, yellowy color. Once registration happens and you are registered in courses, it turns green. So you're good to go. If anything turns red when you try to register, it means that you weren't able to get that course. There's some sort of issue. So a conflict, or maybe you're not eligible to take it because it's an upper year course. So the color codes will kind of tell you where you stand with your registration as well.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We have somebody who's asking what are the courses that are offered online. So I'll just say if you go to stu.ca/register and then you look for those first year courses, that page will give you an entire list of all the courses that are being offered and the times at which they're offered. It also will specify if it's online. So essentially, if you click on that page and then you just do like a Control F find online, you'll be able to highlight all of those courses that are being online in an effective way as quickly as possible. So this is something that was discussed a bit, but just to drive it home, we have somebody who's asking, I picked Intro to Musical Theater as one of my courses for the fall. I noticed that it ends in a 3, so does that mean that it's not a full year course and I have to pick something else for second semester? Also, is year 1 English for a full year?
So for the musical theater question, just remember that it is tied to that other course. So 1733 and 1743. So if you've got the 1743 for first semester, you'll have 1733 in second semester. That'll be like the full year. And for English, English is actually one of the unique ones. You found a unique one. So there's a couple ways to get your English intro courses. One option, probably the most common, is by getting the full year English literature 1016. But there are some 3 credit hour English courses as well. So you'll notice, I think in second semester, there's a 1023 that is an Intro to English Literature 3 credit hour course. If you take that and you want to continue on into English, you will need another 3 credit hour English as well. So I think it's Intro to Film Studies is an option.
Digital literacy.
There's digital
Yes.
literacy. There's a couple of others.
I'm
Yeah.
blanking on
Yeah.
what they are.
But
Yes,
you'll be able
6
to
credit
find
hours of
them.
English is
Yeah.
what is required to move on. It doesn't matter which way you get it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So you folks may notice that I've shut down the Q&A just so we can finish up these questions. We're so happy to see you folks so engaged and so thoughtful about what the future will hold. As I mentioned, this isn't the end all be all for support. We'll have another webinar in a week, and we'll have many other ways for you to get support from our team. So we'll talk about those briefly, but I just want to finish up the Q&A questions we have. I have somebody who's asking, what does AP and IB mean? So that would just be advanced placement or international baccalaureate. So these are offerings that are available at some high schools. They're not available at all high schools, and we acknowledge that. So it's in no way required. But if you have taken any courses within those curricula, then we're happy to talk with you and better understand what your options are in terms of transfer credit. We have somebody who's relatedly asking what AP exams are valid for transfer credit. Specifically, is AP Bio and AP Psych accepted? And the answer for those two is yes, which is quite easy. But again, if you have any specifics that you're wondering about, just let us know and we can talk you through that. Allison, I've got a question for you. What do exams look like and how do they work? And I've had a lot of questions about this recently because we know that there's quite a variety of preparation that students are getting, with some having never taken an exam at the high school level and others who have done them all 4 years. So how do exams work at STU?
How do exams work at STU? Well, not every class has an exam, so you've got that to look forward to. But you won't know when you're choosing a course whether it has an exam or not. But chances are not all 5 of your courses are going to have exams. Sometimes a professor will have, like, some courses will be more essay based, and so you'll have a final paper rather than an exam. If your course does have an exam, you'll know the date way ahead of time, like early in first semester. You'll know the date for your exam at Christmas time. Excuse me, exam can take all kinds of different formats. Generally, they can be 3 hours long. Does a student sit there for 3 hours? Not very often. Generally, faculty don't write exams, not for first year students anyway, that are going to take you 3 hours to write, but some people will take that long. There's always some people. So exams are, I know my kids went to Fredericton High School and didn't do exams until after Christmas. One nice thing is they're all done before Christmas at the university level. So that never made sense to me. I always thought that was just so mean that they had to go back and do all that. And that first semester lasted forever. You will find, like, the year just zips by once you're here, because you're writing those exams. Well, our last day of classes was today. Exams start, I believe, on Friday.
Friday.
And they go until the 19th and they're done. So they only run for a short period of time. If you've got any kind of conflict, if you've got too many exams close together, there are mechanisms where we kick one of those down the road and you write one of those on the makeup day. I wouldn't stress about exams because, like I said, there's a trend here anyway. There's not exams in every course. There's always going to be some way of some kind of final paper or something like that, or it will be outlined in that course outline you're going to get at the first of the year. That's generally where you'll see where the date is too, if they know it by then. So you can make some decisions then. If you're really anxious about writing exams, you can come and talk to me when you get here, and I can try and help with that. But like I said, chances are if you're in 5 courses, you're not going to have 5 exams, and you'll have lots of time to see, like, when those are and prepare for them. And they happen at the very end of each semester.
Yeah. And I'll just put a plug in too for some supports we have on campus. We have peer tutoring, which is students that have taken these courses that you're done. They've worked with these professors. If you're connected with peer tutoring quite early, you can get a little bit of a heads up on how different courses might work or structure their testing so that you can prepare yourself for that. So if you know it's going to be multiple choice, here are some strategies that you can do to prepare for multiple choice exams. If it's essay based, here's some ways that you can prepare for that. Some professors will give you open book exams, some will give you the questions in advance. So it really does vary from course to course.
And something I'll just really briefly mention before we move on, because we have so much to share with you folks, is that I find oftentimes when I'm talking with some students who are currently in high school, they have this understanding of exams as they go into this huge gymnasium
Oh yeah,
where they
no.
don't know anybody, it's unfamiliar, it's very anxiety inducing. And I think this is from a combination of movies they've seen, from stories they've heard from colleagues at other institutions, etc. But at St. Thomas, when you do have an in-person exam for a course, it is in your familiar classroom. In the vast majority of cases, unless there's a very exceptional circumstance, it's going to be invigilated or administered by the professor you've had all year so they can answer your questions. So oftentimes I find students have this very like built up big idea of what these exams are, but it's not dissimilar to tests in some ways. So sometimes I think the language alone makes it seem a little bit more inaccessible or scary than it really is in reality.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. I do think American media does do a lot, and there's some universities, great big universities, it is like that, but that's not the way it is here. Not at
Exactly.
all.
Another benefit to
Yeah,
going to a small
yeah,
university, right?
yeah.
One question that I have for you folks is just where and how do I buy textbooks? And before I turn this over to Allison and Kelly, I will just mention like this is the kind of information that in August we're going to be peppering you with. So if you forget between now and then, fear not. But I'm wondering if either of you just have a quick answer to that one.
Yeah, we have a bookstore on campus. It's down the hill from us. I can't think of the name of the street I'm on, but there you go. Um, Yeah, so there's a bookstore on campus, and then I'm assuming if faculty have, you need to order anything, like you find that out in plenty of time. But for all intents and purposes, the bookstore, the campus bookstore is here, and we do recommend that you not buy anything until you're absolutely 100% sure after you've got that syllabus in your hand that you're taking the course, because sometimes it's hard to return them, or you won't get all your money back, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
Some of them are
Or
quite expensive.
sometimes you don't even need a textbook.
Yeah.
Sometimes professors will provide you the reading material. So it is best to wait until you get here and get into your courses.
It's true. And I just taught a course, a full year course, and I don't use a textbook. I would provide the articles for the students that I wanted them to read because I couldn't get everything in one place. Like not everybody does that. So psych and soc, psychology definitely has a textbook, but that's another thing. If you know somebody that's taken psychology, you don't want to buy a used textbook necessarily from them. You need to find out from the faculty member when you attend that class, which versions are okay, because there are new versions like every year. So you don't want to buy anything used. You don't want to buy any textbooks until you're absolutely sure. Nobody's going to expect you on the first day of class to have a textbook, so you don't need to worry about that.
Wonderful. And just a couple last questions for you folks. So we have somebody wondering if there are hands-on courses, and they're specifically wondering about auto or carpentry. So I can answer that right off the bat, which is no, but that doesn't mean there aren't courses with hands-on elements. So I'm wondering if Kelly or Allison want to chime in on that.
Well, we have fine arts courses. I'm not really sure of anything beyond that, but in terms,
Digital media, I think,
oh
has some
yeah, yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
hands-on
fair.
components to them. And a lot of our courses have experiential learning components built into them as well, which wouldn't necessarily be hands-on, but it is a little bit more engagement within the community. Um, so it will really depend on the course and what you'd be looking for. And yeah.
And after a certain level, like there are some applied courses like in anthropology and those kinds of things
Ah,
where you get to do
Mhm.
some hands-on stuff sort of after you've built up your repertoire of an understanding in that department.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. And I'm going to end our last question with something that is not related to course registration, just to keep everybody on their toes. So we have somebody who says, this isn't about registering for courses, but I was wondering if you knew when I would have to put the save on my dorm and when do I pick it? So basically, we would ask you to submit your residence reservation. So basically, that's the residence application or preference profile, where you indicate what kind of room you like to be in, if you're tidy, if you're a night owl, those types of things by April 15th. So if you are to submit that residence reservation by April 15th, you will in fact be guaranteed a room in residence for the upcoming academic year. After that April 15th deadline, you'll then be contacted, usually within a week of that deadline, with a time at which you can select your room and roommate. So you will be receiving that, and basically the power is in your hands. So you are totally agentic and autonomous and able to select what best aligns with what you're looking for. You'll have access to eResLife, which is where you would have already submitted that residence preference profile. So you can actually connect with other incoming students to see if you may both be looking for the same kind of environment. And then after you are to select your room and roommate, you would have until May 15th to pay a $300 non-refundable deposit to reserve that particular space for yourself. So there's some different programs that will be coming up, virtual events, I should say, specific to these processes. So if you're not sure what this looks like, I strongly encourage you to stay tuned to your email. You'll be receiving those webinar invites to better understand how this process works and feel hopefully comfortable and confident in what's to come with regards to residence and all of your next steps. So, on that note, as we think through other opportunities for assistance, I did want to mention that a week from today, we are going to be having a course registration Q&A. So the idea is this is a day after it's opened. Maybe there are some unexpected issues that you encountered, or that there are some questions that have arisen since tonight's session. We strongly encourage you to join us. We can just answer those questions in real time. We'll have a couple of current students as well. So if you're looking for like a less technical answer, but just to better understand what some current students' experiences are, we'll have them available as well. We also have meetings available. So as I mentioned, we've sent you a couple of emails already. Most recently, yesterday, Tuesday, April 8th, at approximately 9:30 p.m. Atlantic, you would have received an email that has information about course registration, including a bookings link. So if you're one of those students who has specific questions about French or the Aquinas program and whether or not that makes sense for you, please book a meeting and we can talk through all of those individual considerations. So don't hesitate. There are some things that we may need to escalate to Allison or Kelly, especially if you're a transfer student, but we're happy to start triaging you, and then we can connect you with a colleague as necessary. I also will implore you once again to please carefully review the course registration information that's been emailed to you thus far. There's a little bit of information on the next steps tab of your applicant portal, but we have been sending you a few emails, about one a week for the past few weeks, that are relevant to course registration. So please look that over, get comfortable with the information, because again, it will serve you not just now, but for your future career at St. Thomas. And then we know some students like to connect with us on social media, so feel free to follow us and direct message us at Stu Beginnings. We'll be happy to hear from you however we hear from you. On that note, you can also email me. Again, I'm happy to connect you with Allison or Kelly if it's something that's a bit more in their domain, but you can start there. You can call me at 506-452-0529. I will admit I am in meetings right now pretty much all waking hours, so I may not answer that call, but if you leave a voicemail, I will in fact return it. You can text me if that's preferable, 506-470-4034. And you can also direct message me on Instagram. So basically send a carrier pigeon, whatever you need. We're happy to communicate and support you however we can. Again, we know this is daunting, but we really hope that you see the excitement in this process, that you're really starting on this academic journey and this journey to transformative education. Like, you're going to learn so much about yourself and what resonates with you and how you can lock in and tap into your like superpowers to better the world through these different disciplinary perspectives. So we're thrilled to have you join the St. Thomas community. We're so grateful for all of your time, attention, and questions this evening. And we look forward to continuing to work together, not just in the next couple of weeks, but throughout the summer and in the next 4 years. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much to Kelly and Allison, who have been working around the clock to support all of our current students and are now also working around the clock to support our incoming students. We're so grateful to them. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night or day if you're just starting it. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you all so much. I hope you take care.